Okay, I'm calling this meeting out of recess. Just to recap from the last meeting, we have both bills 109 and 113 already read into the record. We have a current motion on the floor, which is to approve Bill 109. So the public testimony was heard Wednesday on September 4th. So now we are in for our council committee discussion. So we're still on the Committee on Public Safety and Mass Transit, and I am the acting chair of the committee, so we can begin. So Ms. Ford?
If you want to
Go ahead.
introduce the members.
Oh, okay, I can introduce the members so we can see who's missing. To my far right, we have Councilmember Iligan, Councilmember Kanuha, Councilmember Eoff, Councilmember Yoshimoto, Councilmember Ford. To my left is Councilmember Willie, and Councilmember, yes, Onishi should be joining us in a few minutes, and Councilmember Kern has just joined us. Thank you. So we continue on the motion to approve Bill 109. Ms. Ford?
Thank you. This has already been read into the record. Nora, can you drop the volume a little bit? I don't want to blast people here, at least until I get excited. Okay, my bill is 109, and what I'd like to do to start off with, I know you've all read the bill, is I would like to talk about the strengths of my bill versus the Margaret's bill. And a lot of my language came out of Margaret's original bill. I thought she wrote a very good bill. I think it did need to be amended, but I used some of that language. I also said I was going to make a simple bill. I found that was not possible, and I'll explain why as I go through this, why I had to beef the bill up. All right, the first thing in the purpose statement is that we're protecting human, animal life, plant life, all of that stuff. And I'd like to see our county be a heritage seed bank and gene bank to preserve biodiversity. That's really important. But the third reason is we're losing our honeybees all over the planet. This is not just happening here, and it's not just because of GMO. But honeybees pollinate about 30% of our crops that we eat. And we need to make sure that we protect these. It's like the canary in the coal mine. You lose your honeybees, you're losing your food. So that was really important. The next issue is on page 1 in definitions. We need to have a department responsible for the enforcement of this code. And that was something that I put in. We have a choice. We could have 3 departments. Public Works. The reason Public Works is because they have a commission for an appeal. Planning, because they have a commission or board to appeal to. That's the Board of Appeals for both of those. Or Environmental Management, because they have the Environmental Management Commission. I chose Environmental Management. I could have easily chosen Planning, but because of something I'll go into later on the disposal of genetically modified organisms, I felt that Environmental Management had the expertise that the other departments did not. Plus, they have a commission for which an appeal or contested case could be heard. On page 2, under exemptions, you can do research on GMO if you want to, provided it's in a biosafety level 3 containment facility. And if somebody on the council doesn't know what that is, I can discuss it later under your questioning. Margaret's original bill had 24 months, and then it's over with. And I put in 30 months. The reason I put in 30 months, I grow papayas, organic papayas, and I know it takes many months to get them up to full production. And I wanted to have at least 2 full cycles of full production and growth before they were required to remove GMO papayas, should the bill as it's written pass. I put in an administrative enforcement section with a civil fine of $1,000 if you violate this once this thing is in effect, and $1,000 per day if you violate it. If the administrative enforcement from the Department of Environmental Management fails, and they choose to go to court and have a court order the enforcement, then you go into the penal enforcement. That's by a court of law, and things get tough. When you get into a court of law, you could have not only the $1,000 fine, but up to 30 days in jail. I copied this from the building code. Most of our codes have these types of teeth in the enforcement so that people don't just go, oh, big deal, I'm not going to comply, what are you going to do about it? So that's the reason these enforcement goes administrative and then penal, and why this happens. The purpose of having a big fine or 30 days in jail is not to collect the money and not to put people in jail. Good people will look at that kind of a significant penalty and say, I'm not going to take a chance. Bad people are going to violate the law no matter what the law says. We have murderers walking the street all the time. They think they're going to get away with it. So we need the administrative and the penal enforcement, and the 30 months is the final sunset date. Next is the disposal of confiscated GMO. The reason I chose environmental management is because once we've determined that we have to destroy something, it needs the best management practices, and that means it needs to be decomposed. It needs to be composted. That means it's got to go 6 to 12 months to ensure the breakdown of whatever the GMO component is. Some pesticides and some herbicides require up to 12 months. They may even require longer than that, but in order to do it. Environmental management has the expertise to handle that function, which is why I chose them. Those are the strong points in my bill, and frankly, one of these two bills has to pass, and what I would really like to see is a merger of the two bills. I think that we can merge these bills together and do a really good job of protecting the people and the land, the air, the water of this county. And I'm going to yield. I'll answer any questions.
Councilmember Willie, sorry.
Okay. I believe we're at a pivotal junction as to whether we go in the direction of becoming towards nature and protecting our soil and protecting the future of our soil, Mulama Aina, versus moving in the direction of more spread of GMO crop cultivation. Whichever direction we take, I think will be something that will affect us for decades. My intent here and the design of my bill was really I tried at the last meeting really listen to what the other council members said and the public, but in particular listening to the others, and try to do something that I felt, based on what was said, everyone here could could support. The philosophy behind my bill was basically to put us in the place that we are right now. If my bill passes, everyone can continue doing what they're doing right now. It allows the papaya to continue, whether it's continuing a current crop or a future crop, and in terms of anyone else who I may not know about, we may not know about, who is currently growing GMO crops, to continue doing so. This may not be the sentiment of everyone in the public, but what I wanted to do is say, let's draw the line, take a pause, and then discuss. Questions, and that's why we'll be talking about it later, a follow-up ad hoc committee to discuss issues that are not addressed. The key to my bill is really, in terms of agriculture, it's not a consumer-oriented, right-to-know labeling. It's not that. So just, if someone wants to do that, that's for another day. This is purely looking at how do we protect our soil. We're a soil needy island. protect non-GMO farmers. And again, in terms of can we coexist in different ways? I know the papaya farmers have talked about, yes, we can in terms of papaya, and they are exempt, but we could look further at that whole issue of coexistence in the ad hoc committee. I mean, I'm not saying, I've read everything. I know that in France and Europe, they said it's, unless you have 100 miles, there's no assurity of coexistence, but I think we need to all listen. So again, I'm just stopping us right here. So I think the key thing that I put in mind was that no open air. And again, that's trying to say, how could, based on the knowledge that I think that's available right now, anyone, if someone wants to grow GMO in their house, in an enclosed structure, in their sheds, they're free to do so. So I'm just trying to balance it out, but not where it's open air, where at least according to what I've read, there's the potential for contamination. And again, when we say contamination, it's just that GMO, in terms of pollen, anything that's bee pollinated or wind pollinated or pesticide drift is affected. I think so in terms of the concept of right to choose, I'm a farmer, I have the right to choose what I do on my land. There is a line that's drawn that you are free to the extent you are not hurting others. So again, how do we do that? And maybe there are more ways than I'm aware of that we could discuss. But, and I think someone said, well, even if you exempt papaya, even if you do all of this in your bill, even if you do that, Margaret, you're still having this legislation is tainting and you're just hurting and we need to kill it and get it done. But I think people have to be aware of the reality that this is a global concern. When you have surveys in the New York Times and 90% over concerned, you're swatting at the messenger. If it's not Margaret or Brenda or Fresh, you can come, individuals. This is what's happening. And I think part of it is why is it down here? Why is it that it's all on the local level? There are many other counties that are doing the same thing, municipalities, not just in California and other places. Why? It's somewhat of a lack of trust, and that now Obama has said we should not look at our federal regs as a preemption. It's a floor, not a ceiling. And I do have his proclamation on that, which I'll probably hand out as a communication. But where the FDA or Department of Ag each are sort of, in many ways, not regulating and considering something as genetically modified as equivalent. So they're not differentiating. And on the state level, they are working on different labeling bills. They've been working on sort of consumer issues and consumer rights. But in terms of agriculture, if anything, it's been the other direction, such as SB 747, SB 590, where basically it would be eliminate the power of the county to have any say-so over any matter having to do with agriculture, health, well-being. And I have committed, when I ran, to focus on home rule, that people hear, whether we make the final decision or not, whether it's what Margaret wants or Ree wants or anyone, that we have a meaningful say-so in what happens to us. I think there's also there's various degrees of vulnerability in terms of our soil, vulnerability in terms of our people. I mean, I think Larry Gehring and others said, look how healthy I am. Most of the studies that I read, it's young children. It's what happens at very youth. There are also different populations that are more vulnerable. Ones that are more vulnerable, like that get diabetes and chronic diseases, such as the Hawaiians, tend to be more vulnerable. So it doesn't mean we're all affected on the same level. I do think when you look at, okay, where's the profit? Let's just look at the economics. It may be that there's a short-term economic benefit to GMOs, but there is not. There's nothing showing there's long-term economic, cultural, environmental well-being, and what is our commitment in terms of stewardship to the soil. So if you really want to say, what's Margaret doing? She's trying to take care of the soil and the microorganisms. That's sort of the bottom line. I do also think when I spoke to some of the farmers in Waimea, some said, well, I might like to try those GMO corn. I might like to buy some of those and see how it's at. I think that, I'll just give you a warning. You ought to talk to a lawyer. You don't become a buyer. You become a patent licensee. Just as when we open our computer and press the button that says, do you agree to these terms? When they buy those from companies that control 95% of the seeds, you agree to their manual. That manual says all of these different requirements. You can't do this, you can't do that. And if you do anything, here are your penalties. And if you sue us, you go to our hometown in Missouri, and your maximum liability is to get the funds back or replacement seeds. So we're dealing with a very powerful entity. I mean, they are so impressive. They are amazing. I mean, you want to study powerful entities. And so that's why I just think we're trying to say, no, we're little guys here on this island, and I'm going to finish my last sentence if I can. And I think it's like one thing that if you read Kelly Greenwell's letter in today's paper here, he talks about, we have to be part of this movement experiment. We need to have one island, one place that does protect, that is a control, that's not. We have the other islands are GMO. So we're not outside and not stopping progress. And I will yield on that.
Thank you.